Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Mind Matters, the podcast where we explore powerful ideas to help you grow smarter, stronger, and more mindful every day. I'm your host, Natasha, and today we're diving into a topic that's both timeless and transformative. Why reading is important. What if I told you that one of the most powerful tools to transform your mind, elevate your emotions, and shape your future has been sitting on your shelf this whole time? Let's face it, most people today scroll more than they speak. We're glued to short bursts of content, drowning in distractions, and losing our ability to concentrate. Our brains are rewired for quick dopamine hits, 15 seconds at a time. But what if the very thing that could save our minds is books? So, let me ask you, why is reading important? What does it actually do to your brain? Why do the most successful people in the world, from Elon Musk to Oprah Winfrey, swear by the habit of daily reading? And if you've ever told yourself, I'm just not a reader, what if I told you, it's not your fault? And that can change. In the next 35 minutes, we're going to break down why reading is one of the most underrated habits in the modern world. We'll explore how it shapes your focus, your intelligence, your mental health, and even your relationships. But more than that, we'll uncover what happens to you if you don't read. Spoiler, the cost of not reading is higher than you think. Because here's the truth. Reading isn't just a hobby. It's a full-blown cognitive workout. It sharpens your memory, strengthens your mental resilience, and helps you process the chaos of life. It teaches your brain to think deeply, not just react quickly. We'll look at the neuroscience. We'll explore the quiet power of narrative, how stories build empathy, how fiction rewires emotional intelligence, and how simply reading for 10 minutes a day can change the way you see the world. And no, this isn't about textbooks or dusty libraries or being academic. This is about reclaiming your mind in an age that's trying to steal your attention. This is about building a better version of yourself, one page at a time. Think about this. If you knew there was a single daily habit that could make you smarter, more focused, more emotionally stable, and more successful, would you ignore it? Because that's what reading is. It's not about how fast you read or how many books you finish. It's about the mental shift that happens every time you slow down and dive into a book. So if you've ever wondered why some people seem calmer, more articulate, more emotionally intelligent, and more successful, you're about to find out what reading has to do with it. And trust me, this isn't just fluff. We're talking hard science, real research, and life-changing insights. Because it's not just about knowledge, it's about power. The power to focus, the power to feel, the power to think for yourself. So sit tight, because by the end of this video, I promise you'll never look at reading the same way again. Let's get started. Section 2. The Science of Reading. How books physically change your brain. Let's start with something you may not realize. Reading literally changes the physical structure of your brain, not metaphorically, literally. When you read, your brain lights up in multiple regions. The occipital lobe processes the visual input, the temporal lobe decodes the language, and the frontal lobe engages in reasoning, prediction, and empathy. Reading activates more parts of your brain simultaneously than watching a video or listening to audio. But it gets deeper. Studies using MRI scans have shown that reading increases connectivity in the brain, especially in the left temporal cortex, the area associated with language and comprehension. Even more interesting, those changes don't disappear after you put the book down. One study from Emory University showed that brain connectivity remained heightened for days after participants finished a novel. Let me repeat that. Books leave a physical imprint on your brain. Think of it like this. Reading isn't passive. It's exercise for your brain. Just like lifting weights builds your muscles, reading strengthens your mental architecture. It enhances neural pathways and even encourages the growth of new connections. what neuroscientists call neuroplasticity. The more you read, the better your brain gets at learning, understanding, and remembering. Now let's talk about memory. When you read, especially long-form content like novels or nonfiction, you're constantly holding characters, ideas, timelines, and facts in your head. That strengthens working memory, long-term memory, and cognitive endurance. It's a full-on mental gym. In fact, older adults who read regularly show slower cognitive decline. One long-term study published in Neurology found that people who engaged in mentally stimulating activities like reading had a 32% lower rate of mental decline compared to those who didn't. That's massive. And then there's focus. Unlike social media or video platforms, reading requires deep attention. Your mind has to stay on track, process words, and visualize ideas. This builds cognitive stamina, the ability to concentrate over long periods of time. In a distracted world, that's a rare and valuable skill. But the benefits don't stop there. Reading has also been shown to boost analytical thinking. For example, when you read mysteries or complex narratives, your brain naturally tries to predict outcomes. You're not just absorbing, you're analyzing, interpreting, and inferring. This enhances problem-solving skills and critical thinking, things that translate directly to real-world success. And here's the kicker. Reading can even build your imagination. When you read descriptive language, say, "The crisp air smelled of pine and snow," your sensory cortex lights up as if you're actually experiencing it. That's something called embodied cognition. Your brain creates a mental simulation of the story. Your neurons don't fully distinguish between imagining and experiencing. And this is why reading makes people more empathetic, more imaginative, and more adaptable in the real world. That's not just poetic, it's neuroscience. Let's also talk about something surprising. Reading improves sleep quality. Studies show that reading a book, not a screen, before bed helps the brain wind down and promotes deeper sleep cycles. It's a form of cognitive decompression, calming your nervous system and helping regulate circadian rhythms. Here's another angle: language acquisition. Whether you're learning a new language or trying to enhance your vocabulary, reading exposes you to grammar, structure, and nuance in a way that no flashcard app can replicate. Your brain picks up context clues, syntax, and meaning, all without trying to memorize anything. And over time, this builds verbal fluency. People who read often tend to articulate their thoughts better, communicate more clearly, and write more effectively, skills that are essential in both personal and professional life. But let's pause for a second. In today's world, our attention is fractured. Notifications, reels, messages, autoplay, all of them pull us in 1,000 directions. But reading offers the opposite. It's immersive. It teaches you to go deep, to resist distraction, to stay with an idea longer than a few seconds. That's a skill that's vanishing. So if you want to think more clearly, speak more powerfully, and feel more in control, you don't need more apps or hacks. You need a book. You don't need to read 100 books a year. You just need to read deeply and regularly. 10 pages a day, 1 chapter a night. That's enough to engage your brain in ways that scrolling never will. Because every time you open a book, you're not just learning. You're rewiring. You're growing. You're building the mental toolkit that will carry you for the rest of your life. That's the science. That's the power of reading. And we've only just begun. Section 3, Focus, Discipline, and the War Against Distraction. We live in a world engineered to shatter your attention span. Every swipe, every ding, every notification is fighting for your focus. And whether you realize it or not, you're in a daily war. A war against distraction. And right now, most people are losing. But here's where reading becomes your secret weapon. Unlike social media or YouTube shorts, books don't offer instant gratification. There's no algorithm pulling you from sentence to sentence, No autoplay, no dopamine hit every 15 seconds. Reading demands something rare, attention, and that's exactly why it's so powerful. Let's break this down. Studies have shown that the average attention span has dropped dramatically in the past 20 years. In 2000, it was around 12 seconds. Today, less than 8. That's shorter than a goldfish. But here's the twist. Your attention span isn't fixed. It's trainable. And the best way to train it is by reading. When you sit down with a book, your brain has to slow down. It has to block out distractions and zero in on the words. At first, it's hard. Your mind might wander. Your phone might tempt you. But over time, something incredible happens. Your cognitive endurance improves. You can focus longer, think deeper, resist the pull of interruptions. Think of your attention like a muscle. Reading is the gym. It's not easy. It's not always fun. But it's how you build mental discipline, the kind of discipline that bleeds into every area of your life. Let's talk about delayed gratification. Reading doesn't give you rewards right away. You have to invest time and energy before you see the benefits. That's a skill. In a world where you can get likes instantly and answers in 0.2 seconds, the ability to wait, to endure, to stay with complexity, that's a superpower. And books train that superpower. By engaging with long-form content, by tracking plots, by reflecting on meaning, you're building patience, self-control, and clarity. You're learning how to pause in a world that never stops. This is also why reading enhances decision-making. Distraction leads to impulsive choices. Focus leads to considered ones. And the more you read, the better your brain gets at filtering noise, prioritizing what matters, and thinking logically rather than emotionally. Let me give you a real example. Imagine someone reading a dense biography or a complicated business book. They're absorbing lessons, analyzing success, thinking about applications. Meanwhile, someone else is spending the same hour jumping between TikToks, memes, and random comments. Who's going to walk away with more clarity, more insight, more mental control? Exactly. Reading also gives you time to think, and thinking is where growth happens. It's where ideas settle. It's where connections are made. Without focus, there's no deep thought. Without deep thought, there's no transformation. And this brings us to another key point: mental resilience. The modern world throws endless distractions your way. And every time you choose to stay with a book instead of bouncing between notifications, you're training your mind to resist. That resistance builds resilience. The ability to hold your attention on something meaningful is the root of progress. In your work, in your relationships, in your personal development. So if you've ever felt mentally foggy, scattered, overwhelmed, maybe it's not that you need to do more. Maybe you need to read more. Books give your brain structure. They create a narrative thread, a path for your thoughts to follow. And in that structure, your mind can stretch, breathe, and focus. And here's something you might not expect. Reading helps you re-enter flow state, that deep, immersive mode where time disappears, where your productivity spikes, where you're truly in the zone. Reading mimics that experience. It slows you down long enough for your mind to stop switching and start settling. That's rare, and that's incredibly powerful. That's what makes reading revolutionary today. In a world addicted to speed, books slow you down. In a world ruled by noise, books give you silence. In a world built to distract, books train your focus like nothing else. So next time you struggle to concentrate, pick up a book. Every page is resistance training for your mind. And over time, you'll notice something amazing. You'll get less reactive. You'll think more clearly. You'll focus longer. You'll start finishing what you start. And you'll realize that attention is not something you have. It's something you build. And the best tool to build it is reading. Section 4. Empathy and emotional intelligence. Reading makes you kinder. Have you ever cried during a movie? Felt chills from a character's heartbreak? Laughed with someone you've never met? That's empathy in action. But did you know that reading, especially fiction, is one of the most powerful ways to grow empathy and emotional intelligence? Let's talk about why. When you read a novel, you're not just watching someone's life, you're living it. You enter their thoughts, you feel their fears, you understand their motivations. And something incredible happens. Your brain begins to mirror their experience. This is called narrative transportation, the phenomenon of mentally transporting into the world of a story. And when that happens, your mirror neurons fire, allowing you to feel what the character feels, even if you've never experienced it yourself. Studies have shown that regular readers of fiction score significantly higher on tests of empathy and theory of mind, the ability to understand that others have thoughts, emotions, and perspectives different from your own. In fact, a study published in Science found that reading just a few minutes of literary fiction can boost emotional recognition, your ability to understand how someone else feels, more than reading nonfiction or nothing at all. Why does this matter? Because emotional intelligence, the ability to read people, manage emotions, and connect deeply, is one of the most valuable skills you can have. It impacts your relationships, your leadership, your communication, and even your career. And guess what? Reading builds it. Through books, you meet people from different cultures, time periods, and belief systems. You experience injustice. You witness redemption. You walk beside characters through grief, betrayal, hope, and healing. You learn to see the world through more than just your own lens. That exposure expands your heart. It softens judgment. It deepens compassion. Let me give you an example. When you read a story about someone fleeing a war-torn country, your brain doesn't just register facts. It feels their terror. When you follow a character struggling with addiction, you don't just get it intellectually. You live it emotionally. And that emotional experience translates to real life. Readers tend to be better listeners, more patient, less reactive, more open-minded. And in today's world, where polarization, misunderstanding, and disconnection are everywhere, that's not a small thing. That's everything. It's not just about being nicer. Emotional intelligence gives you the tools to navigate conflict, to understand the unspoken, to lead with awareness. And that makes you not just a better person, but a more effective one. But fiction isn't the only path. Memoirs, biographies, even well-written nonfiction can build empathy too, as long as the writing dives deep into the emotional experience of others. The key is immersion. The more deeply you engage with a character's inner life, the more your emotional muscles grow. Here's something fascinating. Reading about a character from a group you're unfamiliar with, someone from a different race, religion, or political view, can reduce bias. One study showed that readers who followed the story of a Muslim woman became significantly more tolerant and less prejudiced in real life. Books literally change your attitudes. And here's a fun fact. People who read literary fiction, as opposed to commercial or genre fiction, tend to show the biggest gains in empathy. That's because literary fiction focuses more on psychological depth and internal conflict, the stuff that makes us human. It challenges you to understand ambiguity, to sit with complexity, to stretch beyond your assumptions. But it's not just about feelings. Emotional intelligence also means managing your own reactions, and reading helps here too. Books give you language for your emotions. They help you name what you're feeling. They show you how others cope, what works, what doesn't. In other words, they give you a blueprint for navigating life. Think of the last time you felt seen by something you read. That recognition, that sense of, yes, that's exactly how I feel, is powerful. It validates your experience and makes you feel less alone. Reading can be a quiet act of self-healing. When you read stories of resilience, of trauma overcome, of people finding meaning in suffering, you start to believe that maybe you can too. That's the power of emotional resonance. It also teaches you what not to do. When you witness toxic behavior in a character, cruelty, manipulation, narcissism, you learn to spot those patterns in your own life. Books sharpen your emotional boundaries. So yes, reading makes you smarter, but it also makes you kinder, and more connected, and more whole. In a world that desperately needs more understanding, books aren't just entertainment. They're emotional training grounds. They don't just expand your mind. They expand your heart. And that makes reading one of the most powerful acts of empathy you can ever practice. Section 5. Mental Health. Books as therapy. Reading doesn't just make you smarter, it also makes you saner. In a world where anxiety, depression, and burnout are at all-time highs, books can be a lifeline, a form of quiet, personal therapy that's available 24/7, no appointment required. Let's talk about how and why. When you read, especially fiction or deeply personal nonfiction, your mind begins to slow down. Your breathing evens out. Your stress levels drop. And there's research to back this up. A study by the University of Sussex found that reading for just 6 minutes can reduce stress by up to 68%, more than music, walking, or having a cup of tea. Why? Because reading shifts your focus inward. It creates mental space. And in that space, healing begins. Books allow you to escape, but not in a mindless way. They let you step outside your own problems for a while also helping you understand them better. They bring perspective. They offer comfort. And sometimes, they bring exactly the words you didn't know you needed. Have you ever read a sentence and felt like it was written just for you? That's not just coincidence. That's connection. And that emotional recognition can be profoundly therapeutic. There's even a name for this: bibliotherapy, the practice of using books to support mental and emotional health. Therapists often recommend reading specific books to help clients cope with grief, trauma, or major life changes. But even without a therapist, you can use reading to self-regulate your emotions. Fiction can help you process loss. Memoirs can remind you that you're not alone. Poetry can break your heart and then mend it. And let's not forget the power of routine. Incorporating reading into your day, especially at night, can create a grounding ritual. Instead of scrolling before bed and overloading your brain, reading helps you unplug, unwind, and transition to rest. It sets boundaries. It gives you a sense of control. Books can also help you confront hard truths. When you read stories of people who've endured pain, failure, addiction, or depression and come out the other side, you begin to believe that maybe you can too. That's not escapism. That's hope. Hope is powerful. Hope gives us energy when we're depleted. And books are one of the most consistent sources of hope available. They remind us that healing is possible, that growth is real, and that the pain we're going through is shared. Reading also improves self-awareness. It puts you in touch with your own thoughts and emotions in a way few other things can. You become more reflective, more conscious of your inner world. Reading encourages introspection, the kind of quiet thinking that allows you to ask deeper questions. Why do I feel this way? What am I really afraid of? What do I truly want? That kind of insight is the starting point of all emotional healing. Books can also boost self-esteem. When you understand that others have walked through darkness and survived, it helps you trust your own resilience. And when you read something complex and follow it through, you prove to yourself that your brain is still sharp, still curious, still alive. In a noisy world, books offer stillness. In a chaotic mind, they create order. In a storm of emotion, they offer shelter. And sometimes all it takes to begin healing is the right sentence, at the right time, on the right page. So no, reading isn't therapy in the clinical sense. But it's absolutely therapeutic. It helps you calm down, think clearly, and feel understood. It's a tool to process trauma, clarify feelings, and restore your sense of identity, especially when you feel like you've lost yourself. Because books don't just tell stories. They hold space. They listen without judgment. And they help you find the parts of yourself you forgot were there. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, anxious, stuck, reach for a book. Not to escape your problems, but to face them with more clarity and calm. Reading may not solve your problems, but it reminds you, you're not alone, you're not broken, and you're not powerless. Sometimes, that reminder is all we need. Section 6. Reading and Success. The Habits of the World's Most Successful People. If you study the habits of the most successful people on Earth, one pattern jumps out fast. They're voracious readers. Warren Buffett reads 500 pages a day. Bill Gates reads 50 books a year. Oprah Winfrey has called reading her personal path to freedom. These are not people with extra time on their hands. They're some of the busiest minds on the planet. And yet, they make time to read. Every single day. Why? Because reading is one of the most consistent predictors of long-term success. It builds knowledge, widens perspective, sharpens judgment, and most importantly, compounds over time. Think about it. If you read just one book a month, that's 12 a year. Multiply that by 10 years. That's 120 books. That's 120 new ideas, 120 fresh lenses on life, 120 mental upgrades. And if you actually apply what you learn, that's game-changing. Reading is the difference between working harder and thinking smarter. Successful people understand this. They don't read to impress anyone. They read to get better, to see patterns others miss, to solve problems faster, to prepare for opportunities that haven't even appeared yet. Take Elon Musk. When asked how he learned to build rockets, he said, "I read books." Take Barack Obama. He used reading to maintain perspective and emotional balance throughout his presidency. Take Jeff Bezos. He credits much of Amazon's success to ideas he pulled from books, not business plans. In fact, if you look closely, you'll find books behind almost every breakthrough. That's because books compress decades of someone's hard-earned wisdom into hours of reading. It's the highest ROI habit you can develop, and it's not just about business. Reading builds mental models, ways of thinking that help you make better decisions. For example, if you read about psychology, you'll better understand human behavior. If you read history, you'll learn how people and society succeed or collapse. If you read biographies, you'll see how extraordinary people faced ordinary problems and how they overcame them. The key is consistency. Success doesn't come from what you read once. It comes from what you build into your lifestyle. That's why most top performers treat reading like a non-negotiable, as essential as sleep or exercise. But here's the thing. It's not just about what you read. It's about how you read. The most successful people don't just consume information. They engage with it. They underline. They take notes. They apply ideas. They wrestle with new perspectives, challenge their assumptions, and let reading change them. That's active reading, and it multiplies your learning exponentially. They also reread. That's a habit most people overlook. Going back to a powerful book at a new stage of life reveals entirely new insights, because you have changed. Success-minded readers know this and revisit timeless books the same way athletes revisit training drills to refine their fundamentals. Another trait you'll notice? Successful readers often read outside their field. Engineers read poetry. CEOs read philosophy. Doctors read history. Why? Because reading across disciplines creates what's called lateral thinking, the ability to make connections between seemingly unrelated ideas. That's where innovation happens. Some of the world's most disruptive ideas weren't born in a lab. They were sparked by the cross-pollination of knowledge. Reading widely expands your creative toolkit. And beyond the knowledge itself, there's a deeper layer: identity. When you build a consistent reading habit, you start to see yourself differently. You begin to identify as a learner, as someone who grows, someone who levels up. That mindset shift is subtle, but it's foundational, because how you see yourself shapes what you believe is possible. And reading helps shape that vision. Let's not forget the practical edge either. Readers tend to write better, speak more clearly, and think more strategically. Those are competitive advantages in every industry. So no, reading isn't a luxury. It's a strategy. In fact, one of the simplest ways to upgrade your life is to start reading like a successful person. Set a daily reading goal. Even 20 minutes a day is enough. Track your progress. Keep a reading journal. Read to solve real problems you're facing. Summarize and teach what you learn, because the best way to retain is to share. And maybe most importantly, never stop. Because the minute you stop learning, you stop growing. Reading is the fuel for personal evolution. It's how leaders stay sharp. It's how entrepreneurs find breakthroughs. It's how thinkers stay ahead. It's how ordinary people become extraordinary. So, the next time you hear someone say they don't have time to read, remember this. It's not about time. It's about priorities. And successful people, they read. Every single day. Section 7. The magic of lifelong learning. Let's be honest. School teaches you how to pass tests, but reading teaches you how to grow. This is the heart of lifelong learning. The idea that your education doesn't end when the diploma arrives. In fact, that's when the real learning begins. Reading is the gateway to lifelong growth. It's how you stay relevant in a changing world. It's how you sharpen your mind, stretch your thinking, and expand your possibilities, year after year. Here's the truth. The world is evolving faster than ever. Technology, culture, the job market, everything is shifting. If you stop learning, you fall behind. But if you keep learning, you stay ahead. Reading keeps your mind adaptive, your skills sharp, and your confidence high. You become the kind of person who thrives in change, not someone crushed by it. And that's the beauty of reading. It doesn't matter how old you are, how much schooling you had, or what career you're in. You can always learn, always grow, always start again. Lifelong. Learners are curious. They're open-minded. They ask better questions. They reinvent themselves when others plateau. And guess what? Almost all of them read. Not just for fun, for growth. Reading helps you learn how to think, not just what to think. It forces you to engage with complex ideas, weigh arguments, and form your own conclusions. That intellectual independence is rare and powerful. It also helps you find mentors you've never met. Authors become your guides. Their stories become your case studies. Their failures become your warnings. Their lessons become your blueprints. And with every book, you gather more tools, mental models, strategies, philosophies that make you more resilient and resourceful in real life. But here's the magic. Lifelong learning isn't a grind. It's a gift. You don't need to pressure yourself to read everything. You just need to stay open, stay curious, and keep reaching for the next page. Because every book adds something. Every idea builds on the last. Every insight compounds. Reading is momentum. It's forward motion. It's a quiet revolution, one page at a time. And unlike formal education, reading is completely customizable. You choose the topic. You control the pace. You steer your growth. Whether it's philosophy, personal finance, creativity, productivity, or history. Reading lets you build the curriculum of your life. You can pivot careers with a stack of books. You can become financially literate. You can heal from trauma. You can rediscover your purpose. There's no gatekeeper, no limit, no one stopping you. And the best part? The deeper you read, the hungrier you get. That's the paradox of learning. The more you know, the more you realize you don't know. And that humility drives even more curiosity. Lifelong learners don't pretend to have all the answers. They seek better questions. They live in learning mode. They grow, adapt, experiment. They stay mentally alive, and they understand something that many people miss. Knowledge is not a luxury. It's a survival tool, especially in a world that's changing faster than we can predict. AI is evolving. Jobs are disappearing. Entire industries are being reshaped. If you're not learning, you're not just standing still. You're falling behind. But if you are learning, if you're reading, you're positioning yourself to lead the change, not fear it. You're future-proofing your life, because when your mind is active, your life is too. You see new opportunities. You have better conversations. You connect the dots faster. You build a mindset of growth, which becomes the foundation for everything else. So if you want to stay young, stay sharp, stay empowered, read. Read widely. Read deeply. Read things that challenge you, because lifelong learning isn't about hoarding knowledge. It's about becoming more alive, and the simplest, most powerful way to do that is one page at a time. Section 8. Practical tips to make reading a habit. By now you get it. Reading is powerful. But how do you actually make it a habit? Let's keep it simple. Here are some practical strategies to help you read more, even if you're busy, tired, or not a reader. Start small. Don't aim for an hour a day. Start with 5 minutes. 1 page, 1 paragraph. The hardest part is getting started. Build momentum first. The rest will follow. Set a trigger. Habits stick better when they're tied to an existing routine. Read right after your morning coffee, or before bed, or during your commute. Link reading to something you already do. That tiny cue becomes your launch pad. Track your progress. Use a reading journal or a simple checklist. Apps like Goodreads or Storygraph help too. Seeing your streak grow gives you a sense of progress, and that progress fuels motivation. Create a reading-friendly environment. Leave your book in plain sight. Keep your phone in another room. Make your space inviting. Comfy lighting, quiet music, a cozy blanket. The fewer distractions, the easier it is to sink into a book. Read what excites you. Forget what you should read. Start with what grabs you. Fiction, thrillers, fantasy, self-help, graphic novels. If it holds your attention, it's the right book for right now. Use audiobooks. They count. And they're perfect for multitasking. Walking, commuting, doing chores. Listening still stimulates your imagination and keeps you learning. Build a book queue. Always have your next 2 to 3 books ready. That way, you never lose momentum between reads. Curiosity about what's next keeps you turning pages. Reframe what counts. You don't need to finish every book. You don't need to read fast. You don't need to remember every detail. You just need to show up, consistently. Reading is a habit, not a race, and the more you make it part of your daily rhythm, the easier it gets. So stop waiting for the perfect moment. Start small, start now. Your future self will thank you. Section 9. What happens if you start reading today? So now you know, reading isn't just a hobby. It's a brain builder, a heart opener, a life changer. It sharpens your focus. It deepens your empathy. It reduces stress. It fuels success. It connects you to humanity and to yourself. But let's make this personal. What if you started reading today? Not just casually, not just when you have time, but intentionally. with purpose. As a daily commitment to your growth, what might change? You might start thinking more clearly. You might feel more grounded. You might connect better with others. You might discover a new passion, a new perspective, a new purpose. And over time, you might become the kind of person people come to for insight, for clarity, for wisdom. Not because you're naturally smarter, but because you read. Because you've spent time with great minds, great stories, and great ideas. That's the real power of reading. It doesn't just change what you know, it changes who you are. It transforms your inner world. And that shapes everything you do in the outer one. So if you've made it this far in the video, here's your challenge. Pick one book. Just one. Not the right book, not the smart book. The one that calls to you, the one that makes you curious, the one you've been meaning to read but keep putting off. Start with 5 minutes today, 10 minutes tomorrow. Let it grow. You don't need a grand plan. You just need to begin. Because the life you want, the clarity you need, the peace you crave, it might just be one page away. Books won't fix your life, but they will equip you to face it. So take the next step. Read, learn, expand. Thank you for watching. If this video moved you, share it with someone who needs a reminder of the power of words. And if you're ready to grow, subscribe to the channel, like this video, and turn on notifications. Let's turn reading into a movement. You in?